They called him a man of God. They said his words could heal hearts and change lives. But no one knew that behind the pulpit, behind the holy smile, Pastor Emmanuel was fighting a darkness that would one day destroy him. This is the story of the fall of Pastor Emmanuel Adeyemi. A man who started with light, but lost himself to the shadows. In the busy city of Makola, stood a great church called the Light of Grace Ministries. Every Sunday, people filled the seats until there was no space left. At the center of it all, Pastor Emmanuel Adeyemi, the man everyone believed was chosen by God. He was young, confident, and full of passion. His words touched hearts, his prayers gave people hope. They said, if Pastor Emmanuel prays for you, your life will change. And indeed, it did, for many. But as the church grew, so did his fame. The offerings became bigger, the gifts more expensive. He told himself, it's a blessing from God. He bought fine suits, gold watches, and started traveling first class. And with every new gift, pride slowly crept in. He loved how people bowed when he walked by. He loved the attention, maybe a little too much. He had forgotten that pride was the devil's favorite doorway point. One night, after a crusade, Emmanuel stopped by a high-end lounge. He said it was to relax his spirit. There, he met Grace, the church's choir leader. She was young, beautiful, and full of admiration for him. They started talking, then meeting secretly. And before long, the man of God fell into sin. Each night, he whispered to himself, I'm only human. But the truth was, the light in him was fading. By day, Pastor Emmanuel preached about holiness. By night, he lived in luxurious secret apartments, new cars, hidden bank accounts. He used church money to fund his pleasures. And yet, the people still loved him because he looked perfect on stage. Nobody could see the man he was becoming in the dark. Then came Deborah, a gentle woman from the church who had just lost her husband. She came to Pastor Emmanuel for comfort, for prayer, for healing. But instead, he saw her pain and used it. Months later, Deborah found out she was pregnant. Afraid, Emmanuel begged her to end it. When she refused, tragedy struck. Deborah died from complications. Panic took over him. He hid the truth and buried her body in secret. But secrets don't stay buried forever. Deborah's best friend, Sister Ruth, knew something was wrong. She had seen Pastor Emmanuel and Deborah together and found messages that told a story too dark to ignore. So she went to the police. Quietly. An investigation began, slow, hidden, but showed. It was a bright Sunday morning. The church was full, and Pastor Emmanuel was preaching with fire. He raised his Bible and shouted, God's power cannot be stopped. Just then, the church doors burst open. Police officers stormed in, walking down the aisle. The crowd gasped. The officer said, Pastor Emmanuel Adeyemi, you're under arrest. The pastor froze. The church fell silent. Even heaven must have wept that day. Within hours, the story spread across Makola. Pastor Emmanuel arrested for fraud, adultery, and murder. The headlines screamed. His father, Chief Adeyemi, collapsed when he heard. He could not believe the son he raised for God had become the shame of the nation. In court, the truth poured out: stolen money, hidden lovers, and Deborah's death. At last, Emmanuel confessed. Tears rolled down his face as he whispered, I was blinded by pride. He was sentenced to life in prison. In prison, he was no longer man of God. He was just prisoner number 4521. The man who once stood before thousands now sat alone in a cold, dark cell. He barely spoke. He barely ate. He spent his days staring at the wall, replaying every lie, every sin, every sermon. One day, an old friend, Pastor Daniel, came to visit him. He didn't judge. He just said softly, Emmanuel, redemption isn't about escaping punishment. It's about facing the truth. God can forgive, but only if you stop running. That night, Emmanuel wept for the first time in years. He began to write letters. One to Deborah's family. One to his church. And one to his father. In each letter, he confessed everything and begged for forgiveness. He never sent them. He just wanted peace. Years later, guards found him in his cell silent, peaceful. His hands were folded in prayer. On the table beside him lay a final note. It said, "I was once a man of light, but I let darkness guide me. If my story lives on, let it warn those who wear the robe of righteousness." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful African stories.